Welcome to the Advanced Freelancing Podcast. Every week, you'll hear strategies for building your online service-based business your way. And now, here's your host, veteran freelancer, author, and TEDx speaker, Laura Briggs.
Welcome back. It's time for another Advanced Freelancing podcast with one of the most popular topics that comes up with those intermediate and advanced freelancers as far as when do I hire a VA? How do I know it's time to bring a VA into my business? And how can I properly leverage this person just getting started? Now, I have lots of different things to say about hiring a VA, and there's no way I can cover it all in one brief podcast episode. So this episode is going to be focused mostly on when it is time to hire a virtual assistant in your freelance business and not dive too much into the process of doing it. So this is really designed for you if you don't have a virtual assistant yet in your freelance business. Maybe you hired one in the past and didn't have a good experience, or maybe you've never worked with a virtual assistant before, to get those creative juices flowing about the different types of things that you might be able to use a virtual assistant for, and really making that decision of, okay, I'm at the right point in time when it makes sense to hire a virtual assistant. The first sign that now is the time to bring in that VA to help leverage some of your time is when you are fully booked. Now, being fully booked is also a sign that your rates are too low and that they need to be increased. But when you're fully booked and your plate cannot handle any more projects on it, you have officially capped out your revenue. You cannot take on any other projects, and you cannot realistically expect your business to grow when you have filled every single hour of every day and you're racing against the clock. You're finding at the end of the day that you're barely getting your deadlines done. Maybe you're even falling a little bit behind. So when you are fully booked, there is a clear demand for your services, and any of the time that you're spending on unnecessary tasks, doing administrative work, doing social media, handling invoicing, all of that, that is taking up valuable space in your calendar, and it's also draining your energy and pulling you away from those processes in your business where it could be handled by somebody else. Now, a virtual assistant is a lot like an administrative assistant that you might see working in an office, but this person handles tasks digitally and does them for you either by when they're being paid by the hour, being paid by retainer, or per project. You don't have to start in a big way to bring in a virtual assistant. You can start with just a couple of hours per week with an experienced VA, even a new VA, if you're willing to train them on the process. But being fully booked is that first key sign that you have too much going on and you're actually at risk of dropping one of the balls in your business and starting to make mistakes or miss deadlines. The second thing to consider is that you have to think about how much time you're dedicating to administrative work in a week. A lot of us don't know and tend to underestimate how much that is. So what I encourage you to do is to track your time for a full week. You can do it loosely in a notebook, or you can use a tool like Toggl, that's Toggl, which will help you set up different categories and labels for your tasks. And then you can figure out from there what you're spending your time on. There's also another great tool called Rescue Time, which will essentially analyze what you're doing on a weekly basis and send you reports as well as red flags of key issues. So one of the things that really opened my eyes to needing to delegate and outsource more was when Rescue Time sent me a report about spending 12 hours a week in my email inbox. That's not something that I want to do. I don't think that's something that anybody wants to do, but it was my first real wake-up call that I was going to have to do things differently and, find a way to get on top of my inbox management, hire somebody to help me with it, and implement some different systems and tools. So if you've tracked your time using Toggl or some other way, and you're finding that you're spending more than 5 hours a week in administrative tasks, you are doing too much of those tasks and are limiting your revenue and your business growth potential. So if more than 5 hours is being dedicated to that, it's time to take a step back and say, what of these things can I outsource to someone else? If you're hesitant about handing over financial information to someone on your team, I completely understand that. A lot of people and freelancers are nervous about passing that on to someone else in their business. That's probably the last thing you'll outsource to somebody that you really trust and have been working with for a while. But you don't have to start there. You can still leverage a lot more of your time by choosing to outsource something else. For me, social media is a huge drain on my time. I don't enjoy doing it. It's far too easy to go down the rabbit hole with social media and end up, looking at things that weren't the reason I hopped on there, right? We've all done that. Like you might get on social media to schedule something and then you find yourself distracted. So I'm always looking for ways to more efficiently use my time. So I have had an extension installed on my internet browser for probably 4 or 5 years now called Kill the News Feed. So when I sign in from any of my computers, I cannot see any of the news feed that makes it so tempting to scroll. You still see all of the rest of Facebook, so you can navigate to your groups, you can view your notifications, you can even, click on your own page to get there and update things. But that has been instrumental in saving my time. When I did that, I also realized that I didn't love doing social media. So I looked for virtual assistants who could help plan and schedule that to keep things really out of, off of my plate and different things that weren't really making me money or were really frustrating, but still needed to be done. So I saw that I was spending more than 5 hours a week in social media. I was spending more than 5 hours a week in admin. Those are perfect things to outsource to a virtual assistant. That's a great place to get started. So another thing to consider when you're trying to figure out what can I outsource to a virtual assistant if I'm just beginning is thinking about when you're making consistent revenue. Now, you don't owe it to any virtual assistant to pay them forever. You can work out your own payment terms and maybe bring them on for a couple of hours per week or for a limited engagement to start. But you want to be making relatively consistent revenue to where you don't feel like you're not able to pay them. You don't want to set up a situation where you bring this person into your business and then you're not able to pay them several weeks or months in. I've seen this happen before, and it can be really frustrating for the virtual assistant who essentially pulls time out of their schedule to help you figure out how to get everything organized. They do all of the onboarding work. They, get to know you and your sort of clients and the different industries that you work in. And then if you're not making consistent enough revenue for whatever reason, it gets very frustrating for the VA because they essentially have to step right back out of being able to work with you. And that's not a situation that anyone wants. So do you need to be making $5,000 or $10,000 a month to justify a VA? Not necessarily, but I would recommend consistently making at least $3,000 so that you can dedicate a portion, however small, $200 or $300 a month to start, and you can scale that as your business grows. But you want to make sure you have that money to pay it. Consistent revenue is also a sign that your business is poised for growth. So that is your signal to start thinking more clearly about how you dedicate your time with what you do on a daily basis within your business. So the more you can be critical of how you're currently spending your time and how you divide that up and how you decide, is this something I could potentially outsource, is an excellent way to feel more confident about how you go through with this this process. So the final way to know whether or not now is the right time to outsource is a funny one because I don't think that any freelancer ever gets to this point completely. And that's when you're ready to hand over control. Hiring a VA does not mean that you have to give over complete control of your business, but it does mean that you have to take a step back and decide how you can remove yourself from some of the processes of your business. Ultimately, this is going to help you learn to be more effective. It's going to help your business scale. You're going to get more of your time back when you can spend that as you want. But at the end of the day, you are still going to have to give up some level of control. You're going to have to share password information with somebody who, is new to your business. So that's always going to be nerve-wracking. It's going to be nerve-wracking to hire someone who's going to do something that is facing the front of your business. So talking with potential clients, etc. But that will always be there, right? Because you've put so much energy and time into establishing your business. And it's just scary to kind of hand that over to another person. But it's also something that is really important to think about. There's a lot of different benefits that you can get from outsourcing to a virtual assistant, and knowing how you're going to leverage that and what the benefits are for you and your business and even your clients will give you a lot of peace of mind. So in general, I've grouped virtual assistants into a couple of different categories. Now, there's many out there. Some of the most common that a freelancer might be hiring are a graphic designer VA, a content manager VA, a general virtual assistant, and a web development VA. So a graphic designer VA is going to be making icons, logos, banners, headers, and ebooks, possibly even delving into designing of websites a little bit. They might design your sales pages, opt-in pages, landing pages, and edit your graphics for social media. A content manager is someone who is helping you to write press releases, newsletters, directory submissions, or creating, editing, or posting your blogs on your behalf. I have a VA on my team who helps to make sure that all of the content that I create is ready to be published live. Now, the category of general virtual assistant can also include social media VAs. You might sometimes find social media VAs working outside of the general VA term because they won't take on generalized projects. They'll specifically do social media, but general VAs are where most freelancers are going to start when hiring their very first, project, working with their very first virtual assistant. They can do things like data entry, preparing PowerPoint presentations, light transcribing of audio and video files, creating templates for documents, creating forms, online research, sending client invoices, basic bookkeeping, putting together training materials, personal errands, doing research or finding hotel or travel reservations for you, adding images and tags to blog posts, acting somewhat like a receptionist, managing your calendar, creating your social media accounts, or uploading your videos on YouTube. So you can see how there's a lot of different tasks that fall under that umbrella of general virtual assistant. For a freelancer, you have to hone in on what it is you do best that only you can do. In my business, that is writing for clients, and that is specifically speaking to clients. Outside of that, there's a lot of tasks that I could do, but I don't really need to do. And that's why it's a good idea to be able to outsource it to someone else on my team. I frequently get the question, how many VAs do you work with? How many do you have? It changes all the time. It changes based on the projects that I have going. Some of my VAs are with me for the long run and have been with me for years. I have VAs that work on my YouTube channel, on my podcast, and its corresponding show notes, VAs that work on social media, and a VA that runs one of my other businesses for me completely and prepares all of my PowerPoints. And I have someone who posts my blogs for me and posts a lot of my LinkedIn articles as well. So there's all kinds of different ways that you can leverage virtual assistants. Freelance writers in particular might even consider using a virtual assistant to do some of the research, the keyword selection, the research of selecting topics and titles for clients. That's a great way to still keep integrity with your writing process, but still ensuring that you're making the most of all the time that you have. You are in the right position to hire a virtual assistant when you are ready to get some of your time back. What you do with that time is up to you. You might take more of a break, reduce your working hours. You might scale and spend some of that time trying to bring in new clients. That's really up to you. So deciding why you're going to hire your VA is going to be important. That way you can measure your success. How will you know when a relationship with a VA is successful? Is it when you have 2 or 3 more hours a week to plan and do certain things? That's up to you. So if you've been thinking about hiring a virtual assistant and you're sort of stuck and don't know what to do next, a future episode will go into some more detail about the process of hiring a VA and what you can specifically expect. This is your teaser to start considering how you might be able to leverage a VA in your own freelance business. I'll tell you that I do not know any 6-figure freelancer who does not use at least one virtual assistant. So if that's where you are aspiring to go, if you're looking to make more money and get more of your time back, hiring a VA should be the next thing on your radar. Thanks as always for tuning in. If you want to check out the podcast in iTunes and listen to some of the past episodes, please consider leaving a review for the show. It helps other people find the Advanced Freelancing podcast. And remember, you can also always join my Facebook group, Mastering Your Freelance Life with Laura, which is where you will get the most free trainings and access to the best tools and strategies